Welcome to Zen and the Art of Self-Publishing. It's the podcast where we slow down, get honest, and put the human back at the center of author life. I'm your host, Janet Margot, so come on in and let's talk. Greetings. Let me tell you about today's guest. She runs a thriving publishing business with her kind, funny, hardworking, and brilliant team supporting about 15 authors on their roster. And she does it all from a Tuscan villa that she shares with 2 dogs, 3 cats, 2 goats, a cockatiel, and 5 funny-looking chickens. And we may hear from some of those roommates of hers today. Those are her words, not mine, by the way. And her name is Shaun Loftus. She is founder of The Book Whisperer. Before books, Shaun spent years in theater as a director and a dramaturg. Did I say that correctly? 50 plus productions is where she learned to listen to a story the way she does, for character, for rhythm, and for the thing that isn't quite working yet, maybe. Some of you probably have met her at the Indie Unconference, which she runs over in Italy. Shaun, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And at this point, it's 3 dogs, 3 cats, 2 parrots, 6 hens and 2 roosters, but we had to rehome the goose, sadly.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Oh,
that
and the
sounds
goat.
like a lot of work. That sounds like a lot of work.
I forgot the 2 goats. Yes, the goats are a lot of work. But yeah, we live in sort of paradise between the Vallombrosa Mountains and the Arno River. So,
oh my God.
And really thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're here. For those of you who don't know you, is there any version of you that isn't on our website on your website, that you want to add to the intro? Just to give background.
Maybe. Because theater doesn't pay a living wage, I also am an early adapter nerd. So in order to pay the rent while I was doing theater, I learned to code back at Web 1.0. So I sort of have the artist head and then the nerd head, which is kind of how I ended up being good at this job.
That's funny. I have the same thing going on too. I'm super artsy and everything, but then give me data and I'm salivating, So let's talk a little bit about you being an American in Florence, because I know or the Florence area. I know that is a dream for many people. How did you end up in Florence, and how did you choose Italy? All that kind of stuff.
Well, it's a long and sort of eat, pray, love story. But I came here escaping someone else's middle life crisis with a baby on my hip. And I found out that Italians love babies. And so I figured if I was going to be a single mom, maybe Italy was a good place to be a single mom. And I ran away from home. And I ended up here with a baby on my hip and a stroller. And I just never went back.
Most runaways don't have such a beautiful story. Hey, Shaun, one interruption. Can you move your camera slightly? Part of your face is off camera.
How is my face off camera?
Or can you? Yeah, beautiful. Excellent, excellent. So, so you went there as a single mom. You fell in love. You stayed in Italy. Lucky you. That's actually where I was planning on going when I left the United States, but somehow I stayed in Mexico. Mexico was my interim location, and then I just fell in love with it. So let's talk about how you wound up running the publishing business there, though.
Okay, I was working for several online companies in the United States, and I had just an ad up on Upwork, and someone said, "Can you do my book?" And I said, "Sure." And then I read the book, and the book needed re-editing. And so it happened to be about first century Christianity set in Italy. And I happen to know about both of those things randomly.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I edited the book, and then my first author was so generous, and it was early days. And so I was able to make a lot of mistakes and really learn everything from editing, from developmental, all the way through how to release a book. And the book still sells really quite well. And then I thought, and I started reaching out to all of the people I know who wrote books. And I said, hey, I'll
Hmm.
do this for free. Just let me learn it. And so
Right.
I ended up working with a lot of authors very early on and learning how to use all of the tools, to use BookBub, to use Amazon ads. And because I had a nerd background, I kind of immediately clicked with how ads worked, how algorithms worked. I sort
Yep.
of knew a lot of stuff that could transfer over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
working with authors is not dissimilar to working with actors. I mean,
Right.
they're storytellers. And so how to give them feedback and how to help them grow as artists, plus being a nerd, it all kind of worked together like it was serendipitous, is all I can say.
But also, when you were in the theater, that word that I just learned, that role of dramaturg, am I saying that
Dramaturg.
correctly?
It's
Okay. So what is that exactly? Doesn't that like deal with the research and the text?
that deals with research and text. And so I worked both as a director and a dramaturg.
Mhm.
And it's about, for example, no one will sit through 3.5 hours of Shakespeare. You have to
Right.
cut it without harming the story. In San Francisco, I worked at the Playwrights Festival where you're
Oh,
working with
wow.
new authors.
Hmm.
And so I had done a lot of work with that. And then when I met the man who would become my husband, he was working on screenplays. So I worked on editing his screenplays in English as well.
Oh,
So,
great.
so although we don't, as a company, we don't specialize in editing, we offer proofreading as a series. If something falls into my lap and it needs work, now and then I'll do the editing. I've got people I trust more, but I have an ear for the text.
Yeah. Yeah. An ear and eye for it. That's great. So, living in Italy, does that change at all how you work, like the pace, the distance from the US market, or the way you think about books?
Um, I don't know. I'm still American, but I'm one of the Americans who kind of left the US, so I probably have a bit of a different point of view about hustle culture. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't lost my American hustle kind of work ethic,
Hmm.
but I'm sort of allergic to LinkedIn kind of what's my ROI and
Yeah.
what is there's sort of a reason why I'm out of that culture because I want to pay attention to the work we're doing
Yeah.
without having a lot of the speed, produce results kind of thing that we're enculturated with because writers are doing art and it I fulfilled the part of doing the nerdy business technical ability, but I want my writers to really be able to focus on writing without thinking of, you know, ultimate returns on ROI. I can handle that for them.
Right.
We're not, we're still all expats at my company. We're all from different countries, the UK, the US. Third culture kids work for me a lot. So
Hmm.
it's kind of the best of both worlds. We're all kind of third culture kids. So I feel like we bring the best of American culture, but with the more social aspects of being in Europe.
One of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, because I am trying to like really focus on the human as the world gets increasingly automated, is you had something on your site about you work with creative people who are following their dreams. So I like that philosophy at all. Even though some people may consider you a little bit of a competitor to me, I don't look at it like that.
I
Um,
I had never considered that. It had been
Yeah.
entered my brain.
I think I mentioned to somebody that I was going to have you on, and they were like, "Oh, but she does ads too." And I'm like, two things. One, that's not the core of her business, to my knowledge. And two, I don't care anyway, because it's not a zero sum game. And I think it's really good for two marketers or two ad people or two whatever to come together and talk about things, right?
I wouldn't, you know, I okay, here's the thing about living abroad, maybe, and the kind of person, but I don't understand teams. I don't understand sports ball. I
Oh, oh,
consider you a colleague, not a
yeah, the
competitor.
comp. Exactly. That's a cool way of looking at it. Yeah, it's not a competitor, it's a colleague. We're all in this industry together, helping
Yeah.
authors.
It,
So,
it,
some of your authors might publish up to 8 books a year. We were talking about before this started about the numbers and how your roster changes. You have 15 kind of steady authors. You bring on new people potentially once a quarter, but you have repeat people coming through because they're going to launch. So if you have authors that publish 8 books a year, like how do you keep up that kind of output without being like a pressure cooker, especially because you want to hustle, but you don't want to be part of hustle culture.
um,
Does that make sense? That was a lot of words.
yeah, actually, that's kind of been a sort of difficult growth point for us in
Mm-hmm.
that um, at this point, looking at my board in the distance, most of my authors right now are probably doing a series to a series and a half a year. So it's 3 to 5 books, but we're also now doing them in translation. And so
Mm.
I would say that over the course of last year, we might have had 50 releases, 60 releases.
It's a
So
lot.
it's a lot. So for my team, it can be a little overwhelming. So sadly, we're having to raise our prices and
Mm-hmm.
take fewer clients,
Mm-hmm.
um, which means that I'm sort of with debuts, I'm very slow to accept a new client.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have half of my clients I'm saying write a little more slowly, hold your release. Don't release yet, release in September. And the other half I'm telling write faster.
Why? How do you make that distinction for these different buckets?
Well, you know, a year between releases on a series is too long.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, especially in the Anglo market, there's seasonality.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily want to release a heavy historical fiction in it's sweater weather. So you want to hold it for the winter. So we're getting a handle on that, but it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. So I noticed that a lot of your a lot of your clientele, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, are historical fiction. Are they also mostly European?
No, we've got several in the States. We've got several in Europe. Um, it's pretty well balanced. And like I said, now we're working a lot in the German market as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
we've
when you
got a
say in the
few
German
Italian
market, is that like with German authors or about German history or German translations?
German translations.
Okay.
We have German authors. Um,
Yeah.
Funnily enough, some of them write in English and then translate back into Germany.
Oh, wow.
But the German market is very, very good. So if I've got a World War II author, I do encourage them to do translation work and get into that market because Germans are really love historical and they don't have the seasonality of the US market. They will read,
Interesting.
which yeah, we don't see a dip in the summertime in heavier fiction in the German market. So we're doing that. We've got some authors in the Italian market. It's still a bit underdeveloped, but we do work here. We haven't really done much in Spain or France because the French want French authors. Um, So yeah, that we've got authors all around the world right now.
The French want French authors. Is there still, I know back when I was working at Amazon in France, there was still a heavy emphasis on print versus ebook. Is that still the case, or has that changed
I'm not working in that market, but I would say
enough to
so.
know?
Uh,
Okay.
Germany has really adapted to the ebook market in a way that
Not surprising.
Italy has not. And
Oh, really? Okay.
Italy is still, it's adapting a bit, but the Kindle is not a big thing here.
Hmm.
So people are just as likely to buy their e-reader at Feltrinelli.
Hmm.
So for the European market, it's possibly better to be wide, but we tend to be Amazon centric. And so if I'm working on a book in translation, I might take it both to Amazon and to StreetLib for wide distribution in
Right.
Europe.
Is so how does that change your game plan then with authors, your strategy, or maybe not even necessarily the strategy, but how does it change your team's focus if some of the countries are not so Kindle or ebook focused? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. If I'm doing a book in translation for the German market, Kindle still more or less rules
Yeah.
there. Um, if it's Italy, we will go ahead and take it wide on the Italian market for the Italian translation. But we have better paper sales in Italy
Yeah.
than it changes the focus. But for us, it doesn't matter because we're producing all versions of the book.
And for the European countries, um, what does the balance look? And I know this is a huge generalization and it can vary by author. But for the European countries, what does a general balance look like between the localized, in other words, the translated story versus the English language in those foreign countries?
Oh, the English language in these countries sell minimally. Um,
Aha. Okay.
when we localize, we really localize. So we don't do a lot of strong sales of English language books in foreign language countries. There's a few here or there, but I don't know about you in Mexico, but as an American living in Italy, my Kindle account is linked to the US store.
Me too.
So
Me too. Yeah. So if you have a book out, if you have a book or a series out in English, let's say it's historical fiction, may or may not be set in Germany or World War II. Um, if the book is not really selling in Germany, how do you decide to make that? Or I'm using Germany as an example. Could it be any country? How do you decide to take the leap to a translation? Because that's not cheap.
it's not cheap. This varies from author to author. I don't generally the books that I've put into the German market are doing very, very well in original language. Um, I
Okay.
have a series in English that I'm locating to the Italian market, but that's because the author really wants the book in Italy. So,
Okay.
and his expectations aren't that he's going to make a fortune. It's just an Italian history, so he wants it here.
Do European readers come to historical fiction or find their way there differently than American ones do?
Um, I don't know really. My experience in Italy is that in Europe in general is people are a bit more educated
Sure.
in history.
Sure.
It's not quite as much of a specialized genre, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because they're taught history differently than we were.
Also, it was fought on their, for some of the wars we're talking about, they're fought on their land.
Yes, so there's living memory here
Yeah.
that we don't have as U.S. citizens. So I don't think that there's a bit of a difference. I think it's just, I can't give you an answer. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's quite all right. I'm wondering, and this is just a little bit of prompt. If you don't have an answer, that's okay. But I'm wondering if you see anything different in the ad data, like if you're looking at customer search terms, like how customers actually find like a Marion Kumaro novel in the US versus
No,
somewhere in the EU.
it's pretty much identical. Marion does well in both countries. The search terms are similar. She's got a big footprint globally right now.
Yes, yes.
So um, it took it. She's funny because it took her a while to start translating her books into German, even though she's a German author. So I also think that she hit the market at the right point where ebooks started to take off in Germany. And
Hmm.
Amazon Germany has done a very, very good job in reaching out to get people reading ebooks. So,
Yeah, it's a really strong, I mean, it's as long as I worked at Amazon, Germany was really strong on the book front, which was interesting considering its size,
yeah, no,
you know.
I think they read more than on average, I think, than Americans do. But
Per capita, probably.
I'm guessing
Yeah.
at this. I don't know for
Yeah,
sure,
me
but
too. It's a probably conversation for sure. Yeah. Is there any kind of historical novel that you wish more people were writing?
uh well, that I wish they were writing is really hard to say. Right now, I'm working with somebody who is really hot in the religious historical thriller. I'd like to
Oh,
see more
wow.
historical thrillers. In the World War II market, I wish there were more stories about Italy, simply because the history of Italy during the war is
It's
incredible.
incredible. Yeah.
Italy saved itself, and
Hmm.
the partisans here actually fought, and I don't feel enough credit is given to the peasantry of Italy during that period. It,
Yeah.
so I've got something I'm looking at right now that's written in central Italy during wartime, but I'd like to
Is
see
that
more
a
of that.
debut author?
I think she is, yes.
Oh,
But
that's exciting.
it's exciting, and she's at very baby steps, so we'll see where it
Hmm.
goes.
So, outside of historical fiction, do you have clients that are not necessarily in historical fiction? I keep focusing on that because the people that I know that work with you are all historical fiction.
Right now, I'm working with an author called Glenn Cooper who writes very Dan Brown kind of books, and
Uh-huh.
so
Okay.
it's historical thriller-ish, but it's they're Vatican thrillers. So
Okay.
there's dual timeline, and
Uh-huh.
I love working with him. And he's in translation. He's published here through Nord. He's a big deal
Hmm.
in Italy, but in the U.S. it was sort of like, we already have a Dan Brown, thank you. So we've taken
Oh
his
my God.
backlist. I know America's a funny country. Um, we're working with, we've worked with some fantasy authors. I don't feel it's
Mhm.
my strongest suit. I stay away from romance because I am terrible at it. We've worked.
What does it mean to be good at it or terrible at it? Do you just not have the eye and ear for it, or
I,
what? Like, what do you think?
I think I don't understand the market as well
Hmm.
as I understand the market for historical, and the competition is fierce. And the ladies publishing romance, they know their stuff. They don't need me. They've got it down.
They are fierce themselves.
They are
They like,
fierce.
and I mean that in the best way possible.
So
Yeah.
I've worked with several of them. I work with Lynn Messina, who
Hmm.
writes just lovely Regency, cozy mystery sort of romance, and she is fantastic. But she is a niche unto herself.
Hmm.
She owns this cozy Regency romance space that,
Hmm.
you know She's fantastic. We've done some fantasy, we've done some sci-fi, but because I came up with the historical, I sort of understand that audience and where they are.
It's probably a lot more intuitive for you.
It's it just the things that we do as marketers are more or less the same. We build Facebook ads, we build Amazon ads, we run ARC campaigns, but the audiences are different, and there's just areas I've had great success and areas I've just failed.
Hmm. That's how I
So
am with lit RPG. I can't do lit RPG. I'm also not inclined towards it, but to me, that is just a different world. I can't get into.
when a client comes to me and says, I have this, I am very clear with, I haven't had any notable success.
Yeah.
I would really have to learn the market, and you might want to find somebody who works with interstellar space. Now, I've got an exception. I do have an author who does write military, sci-fi, dystopian. We do well with him, but I haven't been able
Hmm.
to transfer that knowledge over to somebody new, and I
That's so
don't know why.
interesting. Is he established? Is he well established? Is that why?
Yes, he came with an audience, so I didn't have to
Because
build
that
from scratch.
that can definitely make the difference, right? Some of these people, like you were even talking about Marion getting in on the ebook trend at the right point with historical fiction. Like some of those people, it's very difficult to replicate that success. I found that as well, for sure. Even though you're doing the same, you're doing the right things, you're checking the boxes, you have a killer strategy to get a debut author or a debut author in that genre off the ground is can be Herculean.
And there's also, well, there's of course seasonality. Is it sweater
Yeah.
weather?
Yeah.
There's a book can be perfectly what it can be an awesome book. It can be
Yeah.
beautifully written, and it just doesn't hit the right people at the right time.
Yeah.
When I was a baby doing this, for example, we were working with a dystopian author at the point where dystopian was gangbusters. COVID hits. No one wants to read dystopian. We were
I
living
know
it.
it's way too real life.
And so the entire market crashed under his feet, and there was nothing we could have done. So what we do is impacted by real world events that we can't control.
Sure.
An author can have a beautiful literary book and it will find a smaller audience. And we can do the same thing on every client and have radically different results.
How much effort, shall I say, or I don't know that that's the right word, but how much focus does your team put on the cover?
A lot.
Hmm.
I am at the point now where if I don't like the cover, I won't take the book.
You
Uh,
won't just change it
I will change it if the
if
author,
if
and,
yeah.
and it and this is where my nerd brain comes into focus, because a book can be a cover can be absolutely glorious. It can be beautiful, but indie and trade are different, and an indie cover really needs big titles. It needs to have the genre at a glance. It
Yep. Nanosecond
A
recognition.
nanosecond, the artistry comes second. And so I can have a gloriously beautiful cover. It doesn't sell the book. And so I am very oriented not to how pretty a cover is, but the nanosecond, when it hits someone's eye scrolling at 150 pixels, and is it going to sell the genre? Because if it doesn't achieve that, the book will fail. It just won't,
Hmm.
it won't be picked up.
Do
And
you test book covers at all, like either in a tool like PickFu or even on a pre-order?
we
How
will
do you
do
do
it
that?
in pre-order. We will do it in ARC, because
Okay, yeah.
we're big believers in very, very aggressive ARC campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
because that informs the entire strategy down line.
Mm-hmm.
So some covers I know, I'll look at it and say, yeah, that's the cover.
Sure.
But other covers, especially if they're a little more arty or if they're more literary, we will use BookBub to drive traffic. We will use Facebook to drive traffic. And we pay really close attention to the metrics, the click through ratio. It's harder to tell the conversion ratio, but we track everything. And
Mm-hmm.
we have a really good feeling on the ARC campaign, if a cover is going to succeed or fail. So we
How far
use,
out do you start the arc? Sorry.
usually with our authors, it depends on the author. We've got some, we have an arc for 4 months, others
Mm-hmm.
that are there 30 days. If they've got a big following, we
Yeah.
put the arc up and we take it down. The thing about the arc is we can often find problems with the book that we didn't see ourselves just based on our reader data coming in. So
Yeah.
I have one author who's kind of a big deal. I put him on an arc and he gets, hundreds and hundreds of downloads immediately. And the reviews start coming in a few days. He had a release. Suddenly everyone downloaded it, but no one was leaving reviews. And I was like, uh-oh, something is going on here if they're not leaving
Yeah.
reviews. So I started reaching out and they said, well, in this chapter, I kind of didn't like this character and it got really dark and I didn't feel like finishing it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. And so I let the author know the feedback right away. He rewrote it virtually overnight. We re-released it with the new edition. When we released it, it became a bestseller. So, and the same actually happened with the same author on a cover. Cover was beautiful, but it was a black and white cover in a field of blues and greens. Couldn't sell it, so we did A/B testing on the cover, and of course, the deep blue green cover in that genre worked better.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Yeah.
things. This is one thing that if I had any advice for new authors, is to really invest in the advanced reader campaigns, because this will give you so much actionable data. If your book needs fixing,
Right.
if people aren't responding to the cover, you have time to recover. You have time to re-edit if it's not
Yep.
working. It also gives you actionable data on, maybe you have a book that's a slow burn and it's not going to be a big hit. This should advise your ad spend, because publishing a book, whether you do it with someone like you or I or on your own, it's going to cost money. And so it's important to gauge early customer feedback to see how much you're going to throw down in your investment on a book.
That's excellent advice. Excellent advice. So do you for a debut author, or I'll add in there a debut pen name, um start starting the arc early would mean what? Like that 4-month lead time or even longer? Like what does that look like?
You know, because we're a tiny agency, uh,
Yeah.
generally 4 months, but we've had books. We've got one now that's releasing September. I think we started in March.
Mm-hmm.
So, because the author really wanted as much early feedback as possible.
Mm-hmm.
She's in kind of a tricky genre, gothic horror, which can be, it can hit or it can really flop, because that's just a tricky genre where the few top spots are dominated by a few authors and then the drop off is really quick. So
Gothic horror, does it matter on the setting? Because Gothic horror is an interesting, even the definition of that genre is a little wacky, because you have the people who just think it's Frankenstein, right? But then there's all this much newer, different kind of Gothic horror that's
yeah,
much
it's
of it is in Mexico and the US.
the genre hasn't quite caught its footing yet,
Yeah.
and it often contains sort of mashup, so it can be tricky. So this is why this author in particular wanted a long market test on it,
Uh-huh.
which was really smart of her. Um,
What did she learn during that test? Can you share?
I don't know what we've learned yet because we're still in the
Okay.
middle of it.
Got it. Okay.
What we have learned so far is people really, really love it, or people really don't like it. I have to say, they have really strong opinions about this book, which was something we needed to know if people were going to
Yeah.
have such radical opinions, because this helps us focus on who our target avatar reader is.
Yeah. And do you think, though, that some of the people who didn't really like it, do you think some of that is because it's not a super well formed genre?
Maybe, maybe because it was the people who don't like it found it too dark. Um,
Yeah.
they just found it too dark, and because it's gothic, they found the reading thick.
And
But
I would expect, and this, you can tell me if you have a completely different theory on this, because I'm really just spitballing on this, but I would expect for Gothic, the Gothic term, to carry really different weight across the generations.
perhaps, perhaps, I mean, when I
Hmm.
think of gothic, I think literary, and
Sure.
this book is literary. And so I
Sure.
feel like the people not liking this book, they were looking for horror, and they got something that was
Hmm.
too literary for their tastes. So
Hmm.
we're going to see. It comes out in September. It's beautiful. The book is gloriously beautiful, yummy. The writing is so rich. And sometimes those are the hardest books to sell.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, you talked about, we were talking about genre fiction, and you mentioned something about titles that are more literary, indie published still, but more literary, and they're going to find their niche, but they're not going to be like, they're not going to have the same sales velocity as like genre fiction. How would you approach the cover for a more literary book over a genre fiction book?
I spend more money. Um,
Okay.
one thing is that I will end up spending more money. We've got our own imprint that we've been working with one author named Lucrezia Grindle, who
Hmm.
writes very literary historical fiction, as
Hmm.
well as my own husband, but he writes in Italian. And
Hmm.
for Lucrezia's books, we really invested in the covers. We it was Trevelyan images all the way. Um,
Hmm.
it's done okay. She actually did get a royalty payout. I'm very proud of that.
Nice.
We've got our second book. It didn't do quite as well, but there was a long gap between books. But it has a different weight when it's literary. And again, it's sort of like a reader needs to identify from the cover, this is literary. And I don't
Sure.
even exactly know how to explain what the aesthetic difference is, but there is an aesthetic difference.
Can I suggest something?
Sure,
On
please.
a lot of, and I'm just thinking of this now because I'm working with an author right now who is definitely way more literary. Um, I feel like, so we spend a lot of time looking at trad published titles. We are ignoring the indie titles, not ignoring, but pretty much don't focus so much on the indie titles. And I would say that the covered covers are quieter. That's like the
Perhaps.
only thing that I could say that's uniform across them.
I think actually, when I think about Lucrezia's covers, yes, they are a bit quieter. They're moodier.
Yeah,
Keep in mind, though, I live in Italy, and here the covers are aesthetically not appealing to me. So when I go into a bookstore and I look at the covers, they're very different. The same with the German market. They have very different tastes in covers.
Yeah, here in Latin America, I spent a lot of time in bookstores just looking at covers, and what blows me away is the simplicity of a lot of covers. Like you still see a lot of covers with just the solid color,
So
like or
that's
the half. What do you call it? Like the half covers where
right,
it's
like
like
the old penguin,
image.
like the penguin covers
Yes,
with the
yes,
title, the publisher, and a
yeah,
square picture in the middle. That's the same here in
exactly.
Italy.
Exactly. I actually do like those. Like I like going into a bookstore and seeing them, but I'm not as drawn to actually, as an American, I'm not as drawn to pick up the book and actually purchase it.
Well, I think it's how we judge a book by its cover varies
Right.
based on our country of origin, perhaps.
If we think about rights, translations, and royalties, where do you think authors leave readers or money on the table?
I think they leave money on the table by not doing translation if the
Yeah.
book is if the book is doing well. I
If
think
the book is doing well in the US or if the book is doing well in the local market.
if the book is doing well in the US, we're starting to think about doing translations from Italian into English for books that sell really well. Um,
That would be interesting.
we're thinking about it right now. We're very busy with what we're doing, but as far as
Hmm.
growth in the future, we're considering under our own imprint to find a few Italian authors who are very strong in Italy but haven't made the leap. But I
Hmm.
think that this is one place. The other place, I think they leave money on the table if they're series authors, is that they don't have most of their series done
Hmm.
before releasing book one. I think authors would make a lot more money by being sometimes more patient. Um,
So you, oh, more patient to release the whole series when the series is complete.
to have the series very done, because you lose audiences if you've got a series and you make
Hmm.
your audience wait 8 9 months. You're likely to have lost your readers. So if you've got a series in mind, have book two written and book three drafted, or at least
Okay.
outlined, before you release book one, so that you've got, I'm not necessarily saying doing a rapid release, but months between releases, not years between releases. And I think that
Sure.
there's a lot of money left on the table with that. Um, so that would be another thing, that if I were working with a newer author, I and they're working on a series, I would ask them to at least get book two in condition for a 4 to 6 month release after book one, rather than releasing when they get to it, because
Yeah, because they're losing the momentum of the
they
audience.
lose their momentum, and book one is always so very expensive,
Yeah.
investment wise, that you're not going to frequently, you won't recoup that until you get to book three. And so if you run out of money between book one and book three, it's a really terrible thing.
Hmm.
And so you lose momentum, you lose the advantage of where you're putting your ad money if you've got too much space between release.
But would you put your ad money still on book one if two and three were yet to come?
Yes, as long as I knew that book two or three are in the pipeline
And yeah.
and close up. And I'm very,
Hmm.
very careful with authors' ad spends.
Hmm.
I'm working on book one to get them to break even or a little bit better. Um, but if they don't have book two in the pipeline, generally they will not do any better than break even on a single book. There's been exceptions. I've had exceptions where people had one story and that story sold really well. But with series authors, it's really important to really be thinking in series from a marketing and sales perspective.
If I'm debuting a new pen name and I'd love to come to you and your team for support, what do you want to see? What do I submit to you and what are you looking for?
Um, what we want to see is a relatively polished manuscript. If we don't see it relatively polished, but we love the story, we will kick you back to a developmental editor. We've got referrals, or we'll ask you to go find somebody. And
Mm-hmm.
I will generally, if I love a story, I'm going to give editorial notes about what I loved, what I didn't love. But
Mm-hmm.
let's say you've got a manuscript and it's in a genre I think will sell. It's
Mm-hmm.
polished. Then we will generally do the copy editing or line editing in-house, or we'll refer it out. We'll do the proofreading. And then we'll make sure that we're in alignment on a cover. So we prefer to come in at the stage of a polished manuscript. And we're
Yep.
only going to take clients that I really feel that are within my ability to get you the result
Mm-hmm.
that you want, which unfortunately I always assume that an author wants to sell lots of books.
It's not the
Sometimes
case.
that is not the goal,
Yeah.
and I get corrected. No, I just want it to find its readers. And then I'm like, okay, I have to stop thinking like an American.
But what's funny, well, I get Americans that are like that too. But what's funny with the Americans that are like that, very often I'll be working with them for a while and then they're like, where are the sales? It's like, that's not your stated goal. That wasn't your objective here. So you
I
switching on me is not good.
No, and I think that is probably one of my main jobs, is to really help an author manage their expectations.
Sure.
And I don't frequently work with debuts for that reason at this point. I prefer
Okay.
to work with people who have really had time to do the discernment to clarify what their goals are,
Right.
and that they've got enough experience to understand what budgets involved and what the acronyms are. This isn't
Sure.
to say we don't take any debuts,
Mm-hmm.
but generally I kind of prefer people who've gotten their feet wet or their fingers burned.
That makes sense. Tell us a little bit about the Indie Unconference. What is that all about? You have a conference every year in Italy. Not sure
Well,
it happened this year.
it didn't happen this year because we were looking around at world events. And I
Uh-huh.
sort of had a very bad feeling about people's ability to afford plane tickets in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of June. So as these wars were gearing up, I thought, I think we're going to skip this year.
Mm-hmm.
But the Indie Uncon was started here by Elizabeth Jennings in
Mm-hmm.
Matera, and she is a wonderful woman she's like the fairy godmother to authors. And I believe she started it, was part of the ground crew in San Francisco too. An,
Oh,
un,
okay.
an unconference was adopted from science conferences. And the idea is that everyone comes in with their knowledge and specialties together, and they determine what they want to talk about together. And if one group wants to talk about atomic particles and the other one wants to talk about space science, pretend it's a physics conference, they can break off into breakout groups,
Mm-hmm.
or they can come together. And what I like about this model for authors is how many authors know so much, but one will know about this and the other will know about that.
Yeah.
And so when we combine knowledge and we share knowledge, we all get a lot smarter. And this, I have nothing against other kinds of conferences, but sitting in an audience is different than being a participating member with something to offer. And so I think that this kind of conference has been adapted now with the masterminds. I assume that this is
Yeah.
much how they work, like an unconference. And I also very much appreciate the sense of generosity and not competitiveness that an
Hmm.
conference puts together for
Sure.
people. And I also, being an introvert, I like smaller groups. So I,
I think that's the thing that really stresses me out about the bigger conferences that I've always gone just as a speaker, not as an attendee, and even as a speaker, which means like you have like a real place there, right? Because you have to be in certain rooms at certain times, whatever. I am really freaked out by the sizes of them. Like I don't do well in large groups. I just don't. I can get up on the stage, but the off stage part is what just nerves me out.
and even when you have a place, but you have all of these people, by the time, I don't know if I've ever been to a conference where I haven't come back sick as a dog from just
Yeah.
the energy expenditure that introverts, we don't feed on the energy, we get depleted by it. So
Yes.
I like the indie unconference generosity and its small size. And we're
Yeah.
hoping to bring it back in 2027. But this year we decided, just political situation being what it was, that we might give it a skip because it's pricey to put on, it's expensive for people to book tickets, and we know what happened to airline travel this year.
But Matera is an incredible place to visit. I did go to the Indie Uncon in 2022. It was incredible. Life circumstances didn't get me back there the next year as I had planned, but I would love to go again in 2027 if possible. I
Um,
hope you guys
well,
have it
we were
on.
planning this year. We were planning on Pisa, and
Oh,
then
okay.
the world exploded. We've done it in Florence.
Hmm.
Um, I might consider doing it in my region of Tuscany because there's
Hmm.
a beautiful hotel, but we can move it around. Matera's lovely. It's hard for our team to do a conference that far away.
It's hard to get there for everyone.
It's
Matera is
really
not
it's
easy. I mean, I did it because it was easy for me because it was part of a bigger Italy trip. So
well, we're looking at 27 right now, but this year it was just, I had a bad feeling.
yeah, that was probably smart. Yeah. Well, Shaun, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining me today. Where can people find you?
You can find me at bookwhisper.inc, INK. Um, I'm on Facebook, but I don't spend much time there. Best thing is through my website or on Readsy. If that makes
Great.
you more comfortable, you can find Shaun on Readsy. I
Hmm.
also want to tell everybody in your audience, if you get an email from someone claiming to be Shaun Loftus offering services to you, I promise you, I'm not the one who sent it.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I have somebody who's writing to people with my name, with an AI version of their book and offering them things. If you see this person, beat them up for me, please.
It's
So,
crazy how we need to be very suspicious of those emails now.
so yes, and we do. Although Ken Follett wrote me last week, and before that, Kristen Hanna wrote me. And I was really flattered by that.
Well, thank you, Shaun. Thank you again. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Well, that's our show. Find resources and more at zenandtheartofselfpublishing.com. I'm Janet, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take a deep breath, trust your work, and keep writing.